Connect on 88.5 Suffra FM. It is Tuesday, the 30th of August. Wow, this month has already ended. It's only one more day until September, and it's back to school speed for everybody, teachers and students alike, parents too. Everybody's getting ready for back to school. I want to say good night to all our teachers, principals, educational officers, students, parents, all those of you getting ready for next week where we're going to be back on the grind. So, hoping that everybody's getting, I know there's been a shortage of books, but I think everybody should be almost ready to get back into the new school year for 2022. All right, we want to start off with our shout outs. We want to shout out all our communities of Suffra. We want to shout out everybody listening from overseas, everybody listening all across the island, all those of you listening all over the region. But we want to give a special shout out to our different communities in Suffra. We want to start off with Force Jacques. Good night to you, Force Jacques. I hope that everybody in Mini, in Belvedere, in St. Philip, in Boisden, in Belfort, in Deville, in Esperance, and in Belle Plaine. I hope everybody in these areas are doing well tonight and that you're having a great Tuesday so far. We want to say good night to all our friends down in Fort Jalib. Those of you at Mont Lacroix, we want to shout out Larry Gilbert. Good night to you, Larry. Those of you at Chateau Bel Air, good night to you, Miss Donna Theodil. We want to give a special shout out to Zeno, all our people down in Zeno. Special good evening to you guys. I want to say hello to Mr. Thomas Hippolyte of Zeno. Good evening to you, sir. I want to give a special shout out to Colabet. We want to give a shout out to Mr. Leander Frederick and his wife and family and friends and close relatives. We do understand that you're currently grieving, so we want to extend condolences to you. I want to say shout out to Sulphur Springs, Miss Thomason, if you're listening. Good evening to you. Good night, good night, good night. I want to say good night to Fokako. We want to say good night to Diamond, everybody down at Diamond. So many people to mention at Diamond. I don't want to leave anybody out, so I won't mention any names. But good night to you, Diamond. Thanks for keeping it locked to Let's Connect. We want to say hello to Bouton and all our people in Bouton. We're coming to you guys on Saturday. We're looking forward to it. Good night to you guys. Good night to you, Mr. John. Good night, Miss Calixter. We're going to say a special good evening to Etongs and all our wonderful people in Etongs, the entire Ja family, Miss Camilla, Miss Calixter, and Miss Joycelyn. We want to say good night to everybody, including Mr. Kennedy Jean. Good night to you guys. We want to say good night to everybody down at Margaret Toot. If you're in Market Road, good night to you. Palmis, good night, good night, good night. Hope you guys are all right. I want to say good night to Fort Beignet and New Development and Wingsville. We want to say good night to Church Street and all our guys on the block. Good night. Thanks for listening to Let's Connect. I want to say hi to Smoke Hill and the Gulf. And good evening to you guys in Lenny's Hill. And also big shout out to everybody down at Barron's Drive. If you're tuned in and you're on our live chat, we do hope that you're having a good evening so far. Good night to you, Miss Teresa Wilfred. Good night to all those of you keeping it locked to the Let's Connect program. Give us a shout on the live chat so I can see that you're there. I want to say good night to all the persons in the elderly care program. We want to say good night to you guys. So we're going to shout out to Miss Luciana, Miss Vanelsa, Annie, Miss Buffer, Miss Phaedra, Charlene, and Hickson. All of you in the elderly care program. Good night to you guys. We want to shout out all of you on our live feed. I'm seeing a Miss Philip there. Good evening to everybody. Hope that you're all having a great week so far. Like I said, it's back to school speed, so I know a lot of our parents are stressed out. I know a lot of kids are anxious but also excited. We know everybody's getting their shoes scrubbed, getting their bags packed, their books wrapped. It used to be such an interesting time for me when we used to get ready for back to school. I can recall always having to sit and make sure I wrap all my books, make sure my name is on all my books. That was such a ritual. I can have such a great memory, pull up some great memories of that. So I know some of you have some great memories of back to school. Feel free to share your back to school sagas with us. We're gonna read them out. So if you have any back to school memories or back to school current sagas that you're experiencing. We know at Island Wide there is an issue with getting some of the books. So share with us your back to school sagas. We're gonna be reading them out. Good night to you, Miss Cheryl William. Good night, Viata Henry. Those of you on our program, good night to you, Miss Bernadette Nelson. Thanks for keeping it locked to Let's Connect. Good night to you, Miss Fancy in St. Vincent, always keeping it locked. Thanks for choosing Let's Connect for your Tuesday night program. All right, so tonight we're going to be going over some of the accomplishments. We're going to be reviewing some of the accomplishments over the last year, especially for Suffra. So we're definitely going to be going into a deep dive tonight. So feel free. The program is yours as well. Feel free to share and to comment on anything that is being said. We also want to, in line with what I said earlier regarding Mr. Leander Frederick and his family currently grieving, we want to let you know that the funeral of Miss Maxima Joseph, who we announced a few weeks back that she passed away, her funeral will be taking place this week, Friday, which is the 2nd of September. Okay, so the funeral is on the 2nd of September. If any family member is on our live chat and can send us any message regarding the funeral details, please do so. I'm not sure if the ceremony is in Suffra or not, so please give us some details on that. All right, good night to you, Miss Calixta Joseph. Thanks for joining us on the program. Okay, so we want to look at, first off, the first 100 days. So I know it's only been a year, but sometimes we need to remember some of the things that has occurred. So we had our election victory, which took place on July 26, 2021. That was last year, only a year ago. And then in August, on the 9th, we had the swearing in of our ministers, including our very own Honorable Emma Hippolyte, who is now the Minister for Commerce, Manufacturing, Business Development, Cooperatives, and Consumer Affairs. All right, and then on the 21st of August 2021, Emma Hippolyte toured the constituency with the Southern Division Engineers of the Ministry of Infrastructure. And in doing so, a small number of projects, or rather I should say a number of small projects, were identified for immediate remediation. So through that, contracts were issued for the desilting of the Suffra River, and also there was some grill repair done in Fort Saint-Jacques as a result of this. So also the familiarization tour encompassed the Suffra Town Council, the Suffra Regional Development Foundation, and the Suffra Marine Management Association, better known as SMMA. Okay, in August also, there was a launch of the School Assistance Program, and uniforms and books were issued to persons who made it known that they were in need. So this took place last year in August. On the 31st of August, there was the first Parliament session attended by the newly sworn in ministers. Okay, so all this took place in August of 2021. Good night to you, Larry Gilbert. Thanks for joining us on Let's Connect. I want to say once again, those of you on our live chat, feel free to share any back to school sagas, back to school memories, back to school stories, anything that happened in the past and things that are going on now that you would like us to speak of or to mention on our program. Also, anything that we review in terms of our items from the last year, feel free to remind me of anything that I did not mention or to comment on anything that I did mention. Good evening to you, Ms. Dimfna Augustine. All right, so in September, we had to respond to Hurricane Elsa. So there was a response to the natural disaster Hurricane Elsa. And on the 6th, there was a tour of new development, which was the morning after Hurricane Elsa. So Hurricane Elsa hit us on the 5th of September. And on the 6th, immediately, there had to be a tour of the affected areas, including new development, and some of the areas in Fort Saint Jacques. We had reports of flooding of homes after the passing of well, it started off as a tropical depression and became Hurricane Elsa. All right, there was a lot of remedial work that had to be done immediately, including relocation of Wasco pipes and desilting of the ravine. Okay, in terms of Hurricane Elsa relief, a survey was carried out on the extent of the damages to roofs and various infrastructure of residential buildings. In terms of the Suffra Hospital, there was also a tour of the Suffra Hospital, and there had to be a tent erected for persons getting vaccinated so that there could be proper social distancing, and also to help with patient comfort, because when we're crowded up, we're not really comfortable. And also the Suffra Hospital received a donation of PPE to help the staff protect themselves from COVID. And this was donated by Miss Corina Edward, who is a Suffra resident who now resides in Canada. In terms of the Piton management area, on the 10th of September, there was a tour of the Piton management area with the minister responsible for sustainable development, which is Honorable Sean Edwards and his team. And the main objective was to impress upon the management that there should be no further infractions on the pitons. Okay. On the 11th of September 2021, we had the swearing in of the first female mayor for Suffra, that is Mrs. Joan Hippolyte, and some of her other board members were sworn in as well on the 11th. And the chairman of the board of directors of the Suffra Marine Management Area was also appointed on the 11th of September, and that is Mr. Harold Dalsa. In September as well, there was a continuation of distribution of food packages to the poor and needy in the constituency as a response to the COVID-19 pandemic. On the 21st of August, the Suffra Regional Development Foundation appointed the board of directors. This was critical to achieving the #1 commitment of the parliamentary representative, as reflected in the SLP 2021 manifesto, which was to restructure the Suffra Regional Development Foundation to consist of broader representation of key sectors and to ensure a more equitable sharing of the revenue it generates among beneficiaries. We're now moving into October of 2021. On the 3rd of October, there was an assessment done of the product and evaluation of possible revenue generated from the product and improvement to customer offerings. On the 8th of October, there was a familiarization tour of the Suffra waterfront, including the agro-processing plant, which is owned by Rainforest Foods Jaco Products, the Dewash Farm, Bellevue Co-op, and Esperos Estate, with the ambassador of Taiwan, the Minister of Agriculture, and the technical teams of both. On the 9th of October, in terms of the housing sector, there was a visit to potential housing development lands in Crestland, and which was critical to address priority number 4 of the parliamentary representative listed in the manifesto, which reads to implement an appropriate program to assist first-time buyers to own their homes in the constituency. In October as well, on the 14th, under the tourism heading, Anshasney and Jade Mountain was visited, and a meeting was held with the owners as part of the parliamentary representatives' efforts to understand the tourism products offered in the constituency and the concerns of management. On the 29th of October, a visit to Orlando's and a discussion with Chef Orlando on his views as Suffra's award-winning restaurant and also as a member of the Suffra Council. On the 1st of November, there was a familiarization tour of the Suffra Community Access Center with a view to understanding and activating the GINet system for the community. On the 28th, there was a presentation of checks to one, preschools in terms of assistance to address the economic challenges which was caused by COVID-19, and two, to the bookstore and clothing store, who were the ones who provided the assistance to the parents of students of primary and secondary school in terms of back to school supplies, books and uniforms. And thirdly, there was a visit to the Suffra Education Complex, which includes the Suffra Primary School, Suffra Infant School, Special Education Rehabilitation Center, and the Education Sub-Office for District 8. Under Youth and Sports, on the 30th of September, there was a tour of the sporting facilities with Minister of Youth Development and Sports, Honorable Kenson Kazime, and this includes the Suffra Stadium, also the lands identified for the cricket grounds, and the Forcejac Sporting Facility. It was recognized that remedial action was needed in terms of installation of goal posts for the Suffra Stadium and the provision of uniforms for the Suffra football team. Also under Youth and Sports, on the 29th of October, there was a visit to the Suffra Stadium, and coaches were met with young footballers and also other young athletes. The parliamentary representative made a presentation to young athletes in terms of assistance in shoes and football boots, that is, and also there was a discussion with the footballers who had recently received the uniform kits from the parliamentary representative. On the 29th as well, the parliamentary representative met with a group of farmers in Forcejac with the express purpose of helping them formalize their group and getting an understanding of their challenges in terms of food production. As a more recent update, as to date, there has definitely been an improvement for the farmers, especially with the desilting to assist them with their dashing production. All right, so far I want to say once again, we're listening to Let's Connect on 88.5 Suffra FM. I want to remind our listeners that we are doing a bit of a review tonight, and we did start the show off by asking for any persons to contribute their back to school stories, their memories of when they had to go back to school and what that would entail. I was hoping for some persons telling me about having to take cooling and all those type of things. I'm not seeing any persons telling me of those type of stories. We would love to hear about your back to school stories for when you had to get ready to get back to school, the new school year coming out from the summer vacation. I know some parents would have you get dewormed and have you, that was part of the process. So now we know we get haircuts and we get new school bags, but before we would have to consider things like getting dewormed. So any stories, we would love to hear from you. Please post to our Facebook live chat in order to contribute to the Let's Connect program this evening. In the meantime, we're going to be going through, like I said, some of the achievements that we have seen over the last year. So we're going to go through some of the other community achievements that started from long before elections. So in May of 2020, actually, on the 24th, Honorable Emma Hippolyte hosted a telethon to raise funds for single mothers affected by COVID under the newly created Suffra Leve Ede non-profit organization. Also in 2020, July 18th, there was a cleanup campaign hosted at Palmis. September 6, 2020, there was a fixing of potholes at Lenny's Hill. September 8th, 2020, the launch of our Let's Connect radio show. That's a nice reminder that our anniversary, our 2-year anniversary passed us on the 8th of September. Or rather, I should say it's coming up, sorry. I'm sure I thought today was already September, but we're still in August. So on September 8th, we're going to be celebrating our 2-year anniversary of the Let's Connect program. September 12th, there was a domino competition held at Cagney's Bar. That's in 2020, September 12th. And then on September 24th in 2020, there was a visit to the farmers market, which had been put on at the Suffra market, and purchases were made in order to support the farmers. I remember that day there was a vendor with some very nice locally produced wines. I can't remember the name of the company at this time, but I want to give you guys a shout out. I hope that since 2020 that your business has thrived. Also, those of you who remember taking part in the domino competition, give us a shout out. Let us know how much you missed that domino competition. We're trying to bring it back to you. All right. So those of you who took part in some of the activities that I'm going to be mentioning, please let us know that you were present. Let us know that you're still around and that you want to have these activities again. Okay. In October 2020, on the 7th, we issued October 17th, 2020. That is when we continued the domino train. So we hope, like I said, we're hoping to bring it back. Big up to Natalia, who was in charge of the domino train in 2020. Now we're heading into 2021. February 9th, we launched a Gofundme campaign in order to get funds to assist the men of Suffra. We had done the women the previous year, so this time we were looking for the men. And then on February 14th, 2021, Suffra Leve Ede held another telethon to assist the men of Suffra. And then on March 8th, which is 2021, that is March 8th, 2021, female nurses, police officers, and fire service members received the token of appreciation. March 8th is celebrated internationally as International Women's Day. So on that date in 2021, there was a presentation of a token of appreciation to female nurses, female police officers, and female fire service workers. On the 12th of March 2021, we hosted a National Day of Fasting and Prayer. The telephone that was hosted on the 14th of February, we distributed the vouchers to the men of Suffra on the 31st of March 2021. So shout out to the men who were able to get support during COVID from Honorable Emma Hippolyte before she was the district representative. On the 11th of April, we hosted a grand opening of the Fonsejac office that is located next to the Fonsejac playing field. Also on April 11th, there was a donation of footballs to the youth of Fonsejac. Later on in April, on the 15th, we launched a fish aggregating device in the Suffra waters, what we know as a FAD. As a recent update, there are going to be 10 FADs launched island-wide in order to assist our fishermen in providing fish for the community. Honorable Emma Hippolyte hosted a Wallaby competition on the 18th of April in 2021. On the 27th of June 2021, she sponsored a netball competition in Barons Drive. So I want to big up all our netball players locally and island-wide as well. Those of you who are currently out of island playing for our lovely St. Lucia, we want to say big up to you guys. On the 2nd of July 2021, this is right back to where we were on the ground after Hurricane Elsa. On the 20th of July 2021, we organized a distribution of galvanized for Hurricane Elsa victims, for those persons who were in need at the time. Also later on during that time, there was also a distribution of fertilizer to farmers in the area as well. And like I mentioned earlier, from August, we started our distribution of school assistance in terms of uniform vouchers and book vouchers. And this went on up until October. October 28th, 2021, there was a presentation of new uniforms to the Suffra male football team. On the 3rd of November in 2021, a donation of football boots was made to one of the members of the national under-20 football team. Throughout the month of November, the river in Suffra underwent a heavy desilting project. In December, specifically the 17th of December 2021, there was a distribution of 200 grocery hampers throughout the community of Suffra and Forsejac. Throughout the month of December as well, there was infrastructure work being done in Barons Drive. December 22nd, 2021, a presentation in terms of a token of appreciation to members of the Suffra branch of the Royal St. Lucia Police Force took place. January 15th, 2022, there was a presentation of 2 fans to the Suffra Fire Service. On the 20th of January 2022, a presentation of financial assistance was made to vendors who had come out to try and support the reopening of the Suffra Bay. Also on the 20th of January 2022, there was also a presentation made to key stakeholders in the community on promising community projects. Some of those projects were also represented as well under the Funders Forum. On the 14th of February 2022, a distribution of breakfast baskets was made to the sick and shut-in, to 25 sick and shut-in. On the 18th of March 2022, a presentation of groceries, kitchen utensils, and linens were made to the Bouliard fire victims. And on the 27th of March, there was a formation of the Forsejac Farmers Group. This group, like I said, is thriving, and we hope to see more great things coming out from them. Want to give a special shout out to Anne-Marie Sampson. Thanks for keeping it locked to Let's Connect. And good evening to you as well, Miss Camilla Jean. I want to say once again to those of you listening, in terms of back to school, we're hoping that someone will give us some of the highlights of their back to school journeys throughout the years when they were younger. Those of you who remember the cooling that you were given, I remember one that was made from carrots from when I was younger, and I used to break out in all sorts of formations. I don't know what to call them. There were some stuff that used to break out all over me after I drank that stuff. Thankfully, I don't have to take those things anymore. I'm hoping that some of our listeners, those of you on our live chat, will give us a shout out and let us know some of the back to school sagas that you went through, some of the things you had to go through as you had to get ready for back to school, just to liven up the spirits of our current parents, teachers, and students who are heading back into the school system. I have a teacher friend who is currently making WhatsApp stickers into stickers for her to use in her classroom, and it seems to be gaining popularity. So I encourage our current teachers to find creative ways to integrate social media into the classroom to engage your students. Okay, so let's continue with our review of the last year. On the 3rd of April, there was a Good Deeds Day church service, followed by the participating children participating in a hike at Ted Paul, which was all organized by the Do Nation group in collaboration with the Alexander Family Foundation and Events. So I want to give a shout out to Melissa Alexander and her husband and the entirety of the AFFE team for Good Deeds Day on April 3rd. On April 8th, 2022, we launched the Housing Rehabilitation Project in Suffra, and the launch took place at the Cool Breeze Conference Room. In terms of an update to the Housing Rehabilitation Project, so far things are put on hold because, as we well know, there is a rising cost in building materials. So we have to reevaluate and come back to it. I do believe there is currently a list of about 200 persons who have applied for the housing rehabilitation project in Suffra. On the 18th of April, the Suffra Youth Month Committee held a fun, sports, and family day activity at the Suffra playing field, or rather I should say the Suffra Stadium. It was very well attended, so kudos to all those of you who came out for the fun, sports, and family day activity. April 22nd was Earth Day, and in order to celebrate Earth Day, there was a tree planting exercise which took place in Suffra. On the 24th of April, the Youth Month Committee put on another activity, which was the Paint and Sip, which took place at the Suffra Beach Park. This one was definitely one of the highlights of Youth Month. I want to say kudos once again to the organizers and to the entirety of the Youth Month Committee. On April 27th, Suffra had the honor of hosting the Royals, the Earl and Countess of Wessex. And then on May 1st, we celebrated Labor Day, and there was activities at the Suffra Market. On May 7th, we celebrated Mother's Day by having a soup distribution for all the mothers at the market. On the 8th of May, which is the actual day of Mother's Day, there was another Youth Month activity, which was the beach volleyball activity. On May 14th, once again, the Youth Month Committee put on another activity, which was the Ministers' Youth Pop-Up Forum, which took place at Whispers. So youth were able to come in and have their questions answered by the panel, which included Honorable Emma Hippolyte, Parliamentary Representative for Suffra Forces-Jacques, Mr. Ernest Auger, who is the head of the board of the Suffra Regional Foundation, Regional Development Foundation, and as well as Miss Nancy Nicholas. On May 15th, the Youth Month Committee had a free by free ball-orama basketball competition. On the 29th of May 2022, Suffra hosted the Suffra Business Forum. Those of you who were able to participate in the forum, I'm sure you were able to walk away with a lot of information on how to gain momentum in your business, and everyone was advised to have their businesses registered with Ministry of Commerce so that they can receive information relating to how they can access grants and funding and assistance for their business. On the 6th of June, persons within the community of Forces-Jacques who were sick and shut in were able to receive a visit from Honorable Emma Hippolyte, and the households also were recipients of grocery vouchers. On the 7th of June, Honorable Emma Hippolyte hosted the Working Together to Transform Suffra Forum, also known as the Funders Forum. At this forum, she displayed various projects that needed funding in Suffra and invited various investors within the island and internationally to contribute towards some of these projects. On June 19th, a Father's Day celebration was hosted at the Suffra Market. On the 25th of June, Sick and Shut-In of Palmis received a similar visit and also voucher distribution. On June 26th, the same was done with the Sick and Shut-In in Barron's Drive. On the 29th of June, Fisherman's Feast was celebrated in Suffra. On August 1st, we started off with our first of a 3-year saga in terms of Emancipation Day. And I know I don't speak for everybody, but I speak for myself when I say it was definitely an enjoyable time. The concert was wonderful. So we want to say big up to all those who were involved in the planning. We want to say thank you to the Suffra Regional Development Foundation and all the workers who came out in support. EMT who was out in full force, the police as well. Thank you everybody who took part in Emancipation Day activities. We want to thank all our performers. There was a lovely ballet group, a set of dancers. I can't recall the name of the girls, the name of the group, but they had a wonderful openings to the freedom concerts for Emancipation Day. And we had so many wonderful performances from our members in Suffra, so we want to give kudos to you guys. Good night to you, Miss Belinda Mitchell. Thanks for joining us on Let's Connect. I want to shout out all our listeners once again, those of you listening on 88.5 Suffra FM, as well as those of you listening elsewhere on the island. We're still hoping that persons will give us some of the anecdotes surrounding their back to school saga. I mentioned that I remember very clearly having to wrap all the books, and that was probably where I got my love of gift wrapping from. These are some of the things that stay with you over the years, even though you're no longer in school. All right, so still hoping that persons will let us know some of the things they experienced in terms of back to school, whether it is you remember having to get a haircut or having to wear very long uniforms so that you would grow into it. Whatever stories of your back to school days, we are here to listen. All right, so we're going to go back into our highlights from the last year. I want to read here the message from Prime Minister of St. Lucia, Honorable Philip J. Pierre. This is after the first 100 days in office. The morning of July 27th, 2021 was indeed the dawn of a new day in our beloved country. The St. Lucia Labour Party had won the general elections on the night before. You, the electors, had rescued our country from a steep downward economic and social trajectory for 5 long years. The landslide victory ushered in a new administration under my leadership as Prime Minister. You gave us the mandate to advance the socio-economic development of our country for the next 5-year term. Working as a team with my cabinet of ministers, we are happy to report to you on what we have delivered to the country for the first 100 days in office. We promised to put you, the people, first in our approach to governance. Our deliverables so far, as outlined, will attest to the sacredness of that commitment to you. In this period, all our interventions have been people-centered to directly touch the lives of the people who need it most. We took up office in a very difficult financial circumstances. From day one, we had to manage the many challenges of the 4th wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. The last incompetent administration left behind a government structure with very tight fiscal space to fund any program, to ease the pain that you had been experiencing since March 2020. The concessionary loans and grants obtained by the last government had been squandered on pet capital projects instead of income support for the people who needed it. In spite of the difficult financial situation, we were able to deliver to you in the first 100 days. This is just the beginning, and we are determined to keep the pledges that we made to you. We are happy to report that there are signs of a silver lining in the menacing clouds. We are forecasting a good tourism season starting in early December and going well into 2022. The other sectors are expected to pick up as we get control of the pandemic with increased vaccination in the weeks and months ahead. My administration will present its first budget to Parliament in the first quarter of 2022. will roll out new and innovative policies to spur economic growth in all sectors, including the exciting youth economy. This scorecard is just the beginning. Our journey together continues. So I want to reach out to our listeners, those of you, can you tell me if you feel like the achievements after the first 100 days, after the first year? What do you think so far? Let us know your thoughts. Let us know how you feel about it. Reach out to us on our Facebook live chat program, on our platform, sorry. So let us know what you think after the first 100 days, after the first year. What do you think is missing? What do you think was done well? Okay, so we're going to look at response to COVID-19. Over 20,000 doses of COVID-19 vaccines were administered within the first 100 days. The state of emergency was discontinued and shorter confinement hours were introduced. So we know now we can say we're no longer confined at all. We have no confinement hours. Social gatherings for up to 100 people were approved. I don't think we can say that any longer. Social gatherings are open to everybody now, but can you remember that in the first 100 days we had to let up and open it up for social activities to include up to 100 people? There was an establishment of the COVID-19 Management Center within the first 100 days. Also under the health sector, there were 12 new patient welfare assistants hired. There was an installation of telecommunication system at the respiratory hospital. 8 Cuban physicians were engaged. There was a new mobile X-ray machine acquired for the respiratory hospital. 30 oxygen concentrators were secured to assist the COVID-19 patients. There was an installation of a central monitoring system to assist with the care and monitoring of Ward 9 and the 15-bed ICU at the respiratory hospital. St. Jude Hospital also received a plug-and-play medical equipment, which was to improve the diagnostic capacity and to facilitate usage by the general public for cardiac ultrasound unit, and portable X-ray machine. Those of you getting ready for school will be happy to hear that facility fees were paid for 14,180 primary and 10,760 secondary school students in the first 100 days. 1,200 MiFi devices were made available to households. 4,000 students received the laptops, and there was a successful full face-to-face reopening of school. Funds were allocated to pay CXC mathematics and English fees for Form 5 students as well. So we want to say congratulations to our graduating class of 2022 from our CXC students, and hope that the paying of the math and English CXCs was a great assistance to you. Under housing and infrastructure, 5,000 households received the home communication bundle from Flow, or will receive. And this includes, like I said earlier in our previous programs, this includes our 10 megabyte per second broadband with 1 modem and no installation fees, and a fixed line which will include 100 local flow to flow minutes and 10 TV channels. Also under the housing assistance program, $10.8 million was allocated to assist the poor and vulnerable in repairing homes which are in deplorable conditions. Tenants of the CDC units had all outstanding rent for for both residential and commercial tenants were wiped off by the government, which came to about $4.2 million. Staff of the CCC received an annual medical checkup. This was introduced, so a free of charge full medical examination for all staff of the Castries Constituency Council. $2,500 households benefited from the Educational Assistance Program. $1.8 million was allocated to assist parents with the purchasing of school books, uniforms, and meal allowances for students. 318 households assisted through the revised Hurricane Elsa relief program. $48,000 was given in education to explore gender disparities. $1.6 million was secured for island-wide beautification project. So this was in order to assist neglected communities with a beautification project, which will also generate much needed employment. Under agriculture, decriminalization of 30 grams of cannabis for recreational use. This is a first in a series of steps to create a medicinal and recreational cannabis industry. There was the launch of the National School Feeding Program, which focuses on healthy diets and the use of safe and fresh local produce into meals prepared by the school canteens. Farmers and fisher folk who received support in terms of monetary fees, that is, in terms of Hurricane Elsa monetary support after the losses that they suffered in 2021. There was the establishment of a technical team to explore potential markets for bananas in the UK. Since the liquidation of Winfresh under the former administration, new international arrangements for the purchase of St. Lucian bananas needs to be formed. The cocoa sector enhancement project was launched to increase productivity and production of cocoa for local consumption and for export. Training and hiring of 49 new special police constables in order to increase the number of police officers to provide citizens with adequate care and protection took place under the Security Ministry. Vehicles were procured for the Royal St. Lucia Police Force, increasing the fleet of vehicles of the Royal St. Lucia Police Force to assist in surveillance and citizen security. Expungement of criminal records for use of small quantities of cannabis. People who have been convicted for the possession of small quantities of cannabis will have their records expunged, allowing them opportunities to be gainfully employed and without the stigma of conviction. There has been an increase in police presence in communities to curb the long unchecked gun violence, which has reached record-breaking numbers over the past 5 years. Under the Tourism Ministry, there was the return of Virgin Atlantic Airlines to St. Lucia. Successfully negotiated the return of Virgin Atlantic to St. Lucia after a 29 months absence from the market. There was the certification of alternative properties. 40 additional alternative properties were certified to reopen during the period, resulting in an additional 40 persons being employed on a part-time basis. $500,000 was secured for the training of tourism vendors. Funds have been allocated for training of vendors and craftsmen, particularly within the communities, as an investment in human capital and to generate increased revenue to vendors. Under Youth and Sports, development of facilities management policy to ensure the proper upkeep and accountability of sporting facilities across the island. Lighting was secured for the Bonte Court, Bocage, and Corinth playing fields as well, to provide lighting for nighttime use of residents and to host friendly and revenue generating competitions. Under good governance, convening of parliament within the first 30 days, acting in accordance with the constitution. Unlike the previous administration, the first sitting of parliament was convened within 30 days. There was the election of a deputy speaker of the house. After 5 years without the appointment of the deputy speaker, the lower house of St. Lucia once again appointed a deputy speaker. Appointment of St. Jude Hospital Reconstruction Project Review Committee to review the options for completion and commissioning of the St. Jude Hospital. There was also the appointment of the Hiwanora International Airport Review Committee, which was tasked to review the scope and financing arrangements of the Hiwanora International Airport Redevelopment Project, and the results of that review committee was released this week. In terms of the way we do business, $400,000 was secured to facilitate the transition to e-commerce for micro, small, and medium enterprises. St. Lucia Digital Enhancement Program will retool MSMEs through innovation and technology, hardware and software, to facilitate the growth of businesses. Strengthened the Consumer Protection Act, Amendment Act number 14 of 2021 to protect consumers and to provide a more structured avenue for redress or resolving consumer to business complaints. Training of women in honey production for export. The commencement of the CVQ certification and entrepreneurship drive for young women to enhance the production and exportation of honey. While I'm mentioning that CVQ certification, there are forms for person interested in the various CVQ certification projects. So if you're interested in getting certified in the different areas, hopefully next week I'll come with a list of the areas that are available for CVQ certification. But you can take if you're interested in getting certified in your area of business, you can come to visit us in the office and we'll check the list for you to see if it is available. Also, in ways of doing business, launched the restructured Expo Dubai. Extracted over 20,000 visitors per week during the course of the expo with a sales conversion rate of approximately 5%. Launched Taste of St. Lucia storefront on eBay to improve the online presence of SMEs, particularly in the COVID-19 environment. Right? So this was our 100 days report. We want to check back in with all of those of you on our Facebook live chat. See, nobody wants to share any of their back to school stories. We want to say good night to you, Miss Annie. All right, so we want to say good night to all those of you listening on 88.5 Suffra FM, always keeping it locked to Let's Connect. I want to thank you so very much for tuning in with us. Next week, like I said, I'll be bringing in the listing of the CVQ areas for certification for those of you interested in getting certified. But in the meantime, feel free to stop into the Suffra office and speak with us about CVQ training. Also, we want to give a report that the STEP program, which began last week, as we reported last week Tuesday, it started on Monday last week, has now ended, and persons should be hearing from the coordinator very soon in terms of payment. Also, the back to school assistance program for this year, the first phase has been distributed. We are hopeful that phase 2 and phase 3 will take place before school reopens next week, Monday. I want to thank you all for listening to Let's Connect. and keeping it locked with us here on 88.5 Suffra FM. I want to shout out those of you tuned in to Facebook Live, those of you also on our YouTube. Thanks so very much for tuning in. Until next week, Tuesday, we're going to be giving you lots more information on what's happening within the community.